Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode 545. We Librarians are a tough breed. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. We're just sitting here weathering a storm here in Topeka, Kansas. We lots of thunder and lightning. And Sean, you said the power was flickering at your place.
It was rolling pretty good there for a while. We didn't actually ever lose power, but you could tell it was a struggle.
That wind's been vicious, and of course they've got tornadoes down about 45 minutes south of us, and it's all kinds of crazy hectic today. But and then again, that's just Kansas in the spring.
That's what happens.
That's right.
I'm just glad we're getting some rain.
Yeah, me too.
I'm trying to grow some grass in an area. I dug up some bushes, so it needs rain.
That's always really helpful. That way you don't have to water it so much yourself.
Yeah, I've been trying to do it twice a day.
Yeah.
This is my second round trying to grow grass in that area. I gave up on the first batch, assuming the grass seed I had that was several years old was bad.
Oh, yeah.
Two words for you. AstroTurf.
If this grass seed doesn't take, I'm going to go buy some of that rollout stuff that you just roll it out
sod?
and then you water it. And it's not even sod. It turns into grass seed. It's not grass yet, but you can roll it out. It's like a little carpet that then dissolves all the extra stuff. And the seed goes into the ground and grows up really strong. I saw it at Menards. I'm going to try it next if this doesn't work.
By the way, AstroTurf, one word. Artificial turf, 2 words.
Not in my book.
Well, the Houston Astros would beg to differ. So,
all I know is I don't have to mow it. It's green all year round.
Of course, and you need to do that.
I get a chance to listen to some of the audios.
Yeah, there you go. You need that though, Sean, because you're living in what? Arizona, New Mexico?
No, I'm living in Kansas. It's dry here. Did you not hear Keith? Thank goodness we got some rain out of this. I know you're all 4 blocks away from me, but over here on this side of the highway, it's dry.
Did you guys do anything this week?
We took the kids to see Mario.
Oh, what'd you think?
We liked it. We liked it a lot. Gemma sat through the whole movie and did really good. Liam sat through about half of it and then wanted to leave, but then was worried about what me and Gemma were doing and wanted to come back. So he got to see the end of it, and so did Sarah. So yeah, the movie was really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
It is fun.
Did we talk about that last time that I got to go?
I don't think you talked about it. No, I think I was the only one that had seen it.
I think you were the only one that had gone last time. I'm trying to remember when the last time we recorded versus the last time I went to a movie. So, well, we also took the kid and went to go see Mario, and echoes all around. I loved it. I thought it was great. I imagine there was probably, Glenn and Mason probably got way more out of it from the Easter egg front than I did. But there were a lot of, it was like Ready Player One level Easter eggs.
Well, there were some deep cuts there too. There was Jumpman in the very beginning. Unless you really know the history of the game, it's not something you really catch.
That burly guy that is giving him a hard time, he's got Wrecking Crew on his hat. That was a game that Mario actually featured in where he worked for a construction site. So
I didn't even.
I knew it was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Okay, yeah.
Lots of stuff in there. So you really deep dive into that. The best
the plumbing song.
The plumbing song, yeah.
Which that was probably the thing I appreciated the most. Is I was kind of one of those people that was going, really, Chris Pratt? Wait, if we're going to be animated, why don't we just get the guy that does the voice of Mario to do it?
And he was in it. He was the voice of Jumpman.
He was in it.
He was the voice of Jumpman.
And the dad. And Mario's
and he's the dad. That's right. Forgot about that.
But then right off the bat, what do you think about the accent? Was it too much? No, it worked for the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And, it was like, just right off the bat, we're going to talk about this and put it to bed.
Yep.
Well, and Chris Pratt did enough of a voice that I didn't always hear Chris Pratt.
Yeah, well, he puts that Brooklyn spin on it, and I think it works really well. And then on top of that,
ups the octave a little bit too.
And on top of that, he does some of the little Mario-isms throughout it. He doesn't, he doesn't make them. He doesn't go over the top with them, but he does little Mario-isms throughout the film, and so it really works.
And I mean, he was Jack Black as Bowser was.
He was.
I couldn't
part of the movie. Film.
Half the time, I couldn't even tell it was Jack Black.
Yeah.
And as much as Seth Rogen didn't do a voice, it fit Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
I felt throughout most of it, anyways.
My first reaction to that was, "Oh, Seth Rogen, huh? Okay," and then he laughed, and it was just the Seth Rogen laugh. But coming out of Donkey Kong, it was just like, yes, totally. This is exactly what Donkey Kong sounds like.
And especially since I don't know if we ever, Glenn, you would know better than I, but as far as I'm aware, we never heard Donkey Kong speak.
Yeah, I don't think we do. Yeah, I don't think we ever have.
I know he never did in any of the country games I played.
He speaks, but you don't hear him. It's the bubble. It's the voice bubbles, so you don't hear any of them. Yeah,
he doesn't have a voice.
Right.
Right.
Good stuff.
It was good stuff.
Bring on Metroid. I'm ready for the NCU.
Nintendo Extended Universe.
Also watched 65.
Is that good?
I've heard it wasn't. It depends on your definition. I got out of it just exactly what I wanted, which is kind of this, sci-fi movie with Kylo Ren punching dinosaurs in the face. So, if you're going into it for that, yeah, it was kind of decent. I think the problem with it, honestly, is the trope of what they have set up is, it's this visitor from another world, but they crashed on Earth 65 million years ago. Well, that's kind of the hook. But in order to advertise the movie, they had to give you the hook. But then once you know the hook, it's like, oh, okay. There's no surprise or anything there. So
that's what I wondered after seeing the trailer was, well, why did they spoil that surprise?
I don't know if there was a way to really make it not look like After Earth or something.
I don't know. Adam
it's
Driver
very, very much like After Earth, but I kind of sort of liked that one too, even though it wasn't a good movie. So, yeah. But Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt are always good. So, although she better be careful because she's going to get pigeonholed in that post-apocalyptic type of monster movie after Love and Monsters and now this.
Wouldn't this be pre-apocalyptic?
Pre-apocalyptic. Well,
yeah, technically.
Technically, yes. And that was the one surprise that I cannot ruin.
Okay.
Although depending on which blurb you read, they may spoil that too. But
yeah.
I didn't know that one was coming, and it was like, really? Okay.
Well, I saw that's already available digitally, so I may just rent that and watch it here at the house. We watched Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Oh, what did you think of it?
It's good. It's not, best film ever. I think it's on the same level as the first Shazam movie. The first Shazam movie is good, but to me the first Shazam movie is good because it doesn't take itself too seriously and it was a surprise good. I think we went into a Shazam expecting it not to work as well as it does, and it does because they had fun with it. And so while I don't think Shazam's a great film, it's a good movie. And I think this is on par of that because I think it sticks. You might be able to, might call it, they played it safe, but it sticks to those same kind of core, let's just have a lot of fun with the superhero film. And, family at the heart of it. And Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu and the other gal, and I can't remember her name. They all do a fantastic job. They're not scenery-chewing villains like we've gotten in some of these campy superhero films, but they're just enough for this film. In fact, Lucy Liu's, I think, the best part of it as far as her villainous. But it's good. It's good fun, and it's got for me a really super surprising cameo, which is almost a double take cameo because of something that's done earlier in the film. And then there's another more subtle cameo at the end that really kind of feels like this was going to connect to at least the James Gunn started stuff, but it sounds like they're kind of wiping all this away. Well, who knows what they're doing with that universe? But anyway, I had fun. It was a good movie.
Nice.
What he said.
Yeah. So you saw it too?
Yes.
Good.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing that one. I just didn't get around to going out to the theaters because I like Zach Levi, and there's something about him that always makes me want to root for him and watch his stuff. I have been watching Ghosts.
Oh, the sitcom on, was it CBS?
I've actually been watching the UK version.
Oh, okay.
On HBO Max. I'm halfway through season 2, and it is so good. It is one of the funniest shows I've watched in a while. Each episode makes me laugh out loud at least one time. I highly recommend it.
Adding to the list.
Each season's only 6 episodes, so.
An attainable goal to add to the list.
Yeah.
Sean is much more excited now.
We finished watching Shrinking. That's on Apple TV Plus with Harrison Ford and
what's his face?
From How I Met Your Mother.
Emily.
Jason.
Emily. Oh, Siegel.
Siegel, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Really nice way to wrap that one up. I think I'd talked about we were watching that before, but that's a fun and funny comedy drama. It's really, really good, really well written, and really well acted. And Harrison Ford is just a treat in that show. We
worked our way through the Tales from Arcadia animated show on Netflix, Troll Hunter, from Guillermo del Toro.
Uh-huh.
And for an animated kids show, wow, was that better than it had any right to be? It's got a lot of del Toro touches, including the guest cast for a lot of the voicing, which was wonderful. And then when that show deals all about trolls and a bad group that's trying to end the world. And then there's a couple of side characters that show up. And then they did a spin-off series called Three Below, where you find out that those characters are aliens. And so it's all of their adventures with a bunch of the side characters from the Troll Hunter series. And then there's a third series called Wizards, which kind of ties all of these apocalyptic things together that have been going on in each of these other shows. And I think it ran out of steam a little bit toward the end. 3 seasons in a movie. Or three shows in a movie. But I think it was 6 seasons actually altogether. The time we added them all up. But we had fun with that. And for a change, I am current with Mandalorian.
With tonight's episode?
Well, no, not with tonight's episode.
I'm still
not seen the season finale.
I'm still 2 behind, so we can't even.
We can't talk about it then. I am also eagerly waiting, although we'll have to wait for Mel to come back. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll watch it without her for the season finale of Picard to drop tomorrow. Because, wow, has this season been good? I know I've kind of raved about it, but oh man, let me rave about it some more. Oh, it's so good.
They all say, who is Doctor Who?
Do you collect Doctor Who? Do you have Doctor Who items and you don't know you collect Doctor Who? For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world, tune in to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, a Direction Point Network podcast. I am Larry Van Rosbergen, your host, and I have been collecting Doctor Who for 40 years. With popular features like collection protection and the most outrageous offer, we have a lot of fun. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point Network podcast.
All right, well, let's move on to some news.
Well, Titan has announced a annual book that's going to be coming out, a 65-page spectacular called Once Upon a Time Lord, featuring the 10th Doctor. The new Titan comic is coming in October from an award-winning Spider-Man writer, Dan Slott, who's making his Doctor Who writing debut with this graphic novel / annual. And it's going to tie in, assumedly, with, some of the David Tennant stuff, but it's going to feature the 10th Doctor and Martha, it seems. There's not a lot of details other than some pictures.
Well, I sort of wondered about when I first saw the cover, because they released the cover art for it. When they first did that, I thought, I guess initially I thought, is this 14th Doctor material? But this is actually the 10th Doctor and Martha, and I think the blurb looked, or I guess it's the picture that looks great. It looks like there's hopefully going to be some revisits from a lot of different classic villains from the past as well. Looks like we've got Sutek on there and some Slovene and Sycorax and Yeti and Ice Warriors and Cybermen
and Wirren.
Yeah. But the cover art looks great. I mean, it's really incredible. And he's riding on the back of a werewolf, so maybe some tooth and claw.
The synopsis says, an epic story that sees companion Martha Jones captured by the insatiable Pyromests, and her only hope for survival is to keep them distracted with sensational, untold tales of the 10th Doctor facing off against his greatest foes, classic and new. That's exciting that we're getting some Titan comic stuff. It seems like it's been a while since they've had any sort of releases or announcements.
Well, we just finished, I think it was in January that we got the Renegade Doctor stuff. So
yeah.
But it's been kind of like not hit and miss, but there's been kind of we get a 4-story arc and then it kind of nothing for a little while, then another 4-story arc. So they've kind of been slow playing it, and so it'll be nice to see us get at least a big project in the 60th anniversary year. Very cool. What else do we have on the news?
Well, there's going to be a new range of novels to celebrate the 60th anniversary. Each novel focusing on a certain decade, or at least set in a certain decade. So it'll be 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And we have some descriptions of the books, but no actual titles yet, which is kind of interesting.
I wonder if that's because they don't have them yet, or if that's because they maybe reveal a little more than they want to reveal at this point.
Yeah, or maybe they just haven't finalized them. Yeah. So the 2010 one features the Weeping Angels. The 2000s is the Doctor and Rose, although it doesn't specify which Rose, or which Doctor.
I was going to say, which Rose?
There's only one, Keith. The other one's the moment.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, I suppose that's not true because we do have alternate universe Rose.
No.
So
I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to do. I don't think they're going to do a book on the dog. A whole book involving Rose the dog.
That is untapped potential, right?
Yeah.
that would be a daring story arc there.
Sean, get on that.
Sure. Bark, bark, Rose said.
The 90s book features the Doctor and Donna. The 80s book, the Doctor and Romana, are featured in it. The 70s book is the Third Doctor. And the 60s book features Daleks.
And that's all we know.
There are synopses. You can go online and read them all, but they're not really, give you a whole lot of details.
And of course, those are being released on October 26th of this year. So very, very close to the anniversary month of November as well.
And it's kind of cool. They have some new writers to the Doctor Who world, so that's nice too.
All right. And our next bit of news, I think this one's been, what did we decide? Probably 2.5 years in the making. They've been working on this Doctor Who Worlds Apart, which is the NFT online trading card game. Their first free-to-play tournament of 2023 is due to take place on Discord. And the final day for registration is this Friday, the 21st. So if you've been collecting some of those cards and building your deck, quickly sign up so you can join the battle. Sounds like first place for the... it doesn't say what date the tournament is on here now that I'm looking. First prize is a Doctor Who Worlds Apart Founders Token, which they say is valued at $1,000. So... that's kind of interesting. Second place, 2 premium Doctor Who Worlds Apart card packs of your choice. Third place is 1 premium and 1 common Doctor Who Worlds Apart card pack of your choice. And then fourth place is 2 common Doctor Who Worlds Apart card packs of your choice as well. And so you can go to their website and sign up. I did see they have a token, which is the board that you play on now. So that is in the game. And I haven't, other than the cards I bought, I hadn't looked I hadn't been too much into this because it's a little too pricey for me to buy enough cards to build a deck. That I've been through the whole TCG thing and spent thousands of dollars on a Star Wars one. I'm not sure I want to go through that again. But
the answer is no. I'm not going to play this game with you.
Yeah,
I know you really want to ask. I can't speak for Keith, but my answer is
we got
no.
Keith in way too late on the other ones for Keith. But anyway, so that's coming this weekend. So, or I guess they should say the deadline to sign up is this weekend. So, if you're into that and that's your thing, sounds like fun. I think the game's come along a long way and is looking good. And I hope that I hope they've got a lot of people out there playing this because I'd like to see this thing succeed. I'm glad they got it all done and together for the anniversary year too. They were probably worried about that as well.
Yeah.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Let's move on to a review. The War Doctor Begins 4, He Who Fights Monsters. And I do want to bring up really quick before we get started here. Just a reminder for listeners and maybe even an explanation for new listeners. We've been spending the past year and a half doing these stories, exploring the stories, mostly audios that have been set during the Last Great Time War. And then for the Big Finish audios, we've been using an infographic that, and I finally have a name for you, Gerard Groves posted on Twitter back in 2021. And we've been going through and using that for most of the audios. And I'm going to post that again on our website, travelingthevortex.com. So if you want to take a look at that graphic, it's a good graphic. And we discussed a little before show. I think we agree with 3/4 of how the placement of the stories. There are a few that I think we would have probably put in a different spot, but it really is a good guide broken into 3 different acts. And I want to give a shout out to Gerard Groves because they did this and we've been using this, and I feel bad that we haven't had a chance to say anything about who actually put this amazing graphic art together. They do have a great portfolio online that you can look at gerardgroves.com. This person's a graphic artist, and I should mention that they also have a TikTok, and it's called Blue Box Facts. So if you're into TikTok, it's all about Doctor Who. They're a lot of fun to watch. I've been kind of mainlining those just today since I discovered that. So thanks again to Gerard Groves for that, and apologies for not mentioning all those 2 years or a year and a half ago that we came across that graphic that we've been using this whole time. I should also add that we are using the Complete Adventures for some of the materials that are outside of the audios. There's some excellent material. It's an excellent material placement guide and timeline. And I'll give them another plug. It's ispider.org.uk/drwho, DRWHO. A great guide for that. So we've been using that for some of the intermittent things. And as we've done this, like I say, it's broken into 3 acts, and we're about halfway through Act 3 now. And of course, we're actually having to, because stuff has come out since that graph, we've been kind of adding as we've gone along here as well. So
the truth is that this war, this last great time war of ours, is reaching its final end.
The time lock around Gallifrey is breaking. Soon it will shatter, and then we will fall.
It shouldn't have ended like this.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The War Doctor Begins, He Who Fights with Monsters.
We have a mission for you.
There's something worse than Daleks on the way?
And what if your target was another Time Lord.
We foresee a time when the Barber Surgeon will end this war by destroying both the Daleks and the Time Lords.
Yes. I'll do it. He has to be destroyed. By fair means or foul.
Destroy! We'll be attempting to leave Gallifrey in secret. That is how we will find him.
We all have our orders, Captain. All I can tell you is that I'm on a mission.
To where?
The unknown.
Exterminate! Exterminate! I have seen beyond the storm. I have seen him. I have seen death.
This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
The Doctor is no more. A warrior has joined the time war between the Daleks and Gallifrey. But how far will he go? What lines will he cross, and how much of himself will he sacrifice? The War Doctor has begun to find out who he is, and the consequences of fighting with monsters.
Ooh.
I'm going to give this one a bump, even though I hate that rating system. I had a blast listening to this. I think this story overall, because it is 3 parts, it's broken into 3 different parts, but it really, the first 2 parts are really just a build up to this climactic third act that we get to in this. And I think that I don't want to say nothing happened, because the first 2 stories are very much maneuvering of the characters, maneuvering of the Doctor to get him to where he needs to go, because he's been within the confidence of a few select number of the War Council. They've asked him to go take out or assassinate this another renegade rogue Time Lord called the Barber Surgeon. And they want him to go take him out, and he's kind of really the only one that can get there. And we learn that the Barber Surgeon is basically an enemy to both sides, because not only do the abominations of destructive weaponry that the Barber Surgeon's creating not only are going to affect the Daleks in this war, it's also going to affect the Time Lords. And so they're concerned. They want to take him out the top. Daleks have now, launched their own counter operation in order to send their best assassin in to take out the Barber Surgeon. And so there's a lot of that set up in these first two stories. A lot of side characters that really become unwitting victims to this whole plot, because they almost at every turn he's thrown in with a group that basically is transport for him to get him to where he needs to go to put all these pieces in place. And when I say that these first 2 stories are all set up, I don't want to undersell the fact that these weren't good stories, because I think they are. And I think just the sheer character development that we get of the Doctor in the stories, and I think maybe even the development of the mystery or the intrigue of who this Barber Surgeon really is. I think we get a lot of that developed through the interaction with these groups that he's thrown in with in order to get to this point. And so I think the stories themselves, the first 2 parts are still very interesting, because we're getting a lot of that character development. We're sort of on the verge of this story really sort of sets up the idea that I think many, you guys particularly, but many people have had of how dark and monstrous the Doctor becomes, because now we're considering assassination, which is something that in the past he's been sit in for, genocide or assassination, but always has taken the the better path in the past. And this time he's actually on that path to do it. And so I think that really this kind of starts to go into the darkness of this doctor that was really a shame, that is why he's been locked off by his future generations because of these, monstrous things that he did allegedly during the Time War. But at the same time, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself and slow me down if we need to, but at the same time, I think in revealing the barber surgeon as well, I almost get the impression that this is what allows him not to topple off that dark cliff into no return, because I think with the barber surgeon, we sort of see where the Doctor ultimately could have been with almost a parallel version of the Doctor. They don't go as far as saying that, but there's a lot of dropped hints that that's what this is. And so it's almost like this event kind of pushes him back off the precipice of that cliff that he could have easily tumbled over and became as monstrous as this character that's set up. But don't let me dominate anymore. You guys talk a little bit about this.
It also sets up the idea of why he would go to the steps to deploy the moment when he does. This lays that groundwork, even though it should be way further in the timeline for the Doctor himself. It sets that groundwork, so you see that path towards the moments from this story arc. I had mentioned last time that we did a War Doctor story that one felt like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for. And this is a continuation of what I've been waiting for. This is them doing the Time War and the War Doctor. They're not skirting around it. They're actually committing to it and doing it, which is what my issue has been with the War Doctor Begins stuff so far. Is they've been, skirting around it and not. If we're gonna do this, let's do this. And so now they're finally doing this, and they did a really good job with it. I thought.
Yeah.
I thought the story of, we've got this horrible, guy who's going to, destroy the Daleks and us by ending our, time blocks and ending the war, but wiping us out at the same time. We've got to put a stop to him, and getting the Doctor to go do this by assassination. Of course, going into it, I didn't expect the Doctor to actually do an assassination.
Yeah, no,
but, the fact that he agreed to go on this sort of mission, and that absolutely everybody he encounters throughout this entire story dies, and he just keeps marching on. That's the weight I see on the War Doctor's shoulders when I see him in Day of the Doctor. The death that goes in his wake, where he survives, and he could have prevented had he not been focused on the mission at hand. So there's all of those sort of things that make, build this story up for me to make it what I've been hoping to see. Yeah. And then there's, the characterizations and the characters that come in and go throughout his adventures in this. And, they've all have their strengths and their interest and make them interesting. And then they're all set up as great characters, and then they get ripped away from us. And it's like, it's just that kind of continuingly, that's frustrating, but good at the same time sort of situation. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of awesome references that going to Kimball and a Raston Warrior Robot Squad. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, there's all those little nuggets for us diehard fans to latch onto and go, oh yeah, that's cool.
Oh, I know your ultimate squee moment was when D9 showed up.
Yeah, not something I ever expected to do. And the fact that he actually talked like K9.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But in that raspy Dalek voice.
Yeah. And the idea of the barber surgeon is really cool. And I've not ever read the book that he said that it was kind of inspired by.
Superman Man of Tomorrow? Was that the one that...
Well, it was that one, and it was a combination of Superman Man of Tomorrow, and I'm trying to pull it up here. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Heart of Darkness.
Heart of Darkness. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never read that, Joseph Conrad's book.
Heart of Darkness is
so
the one that Apocalypse Now is based on, right?
Maybe.
I
think so. Yes.
Okay, so I have some knowledge of it based off of that.
Yeah, I think it's
realize
kind
that.
of a retelling of that. It's not word for word in any way, but
Mhm.
that's basically the same story, same idea.
Okay, so I wasn't really fully aware of it that much. So the idea that this person is kind of a mirror image of him, and is a reflection of what he could be, was also just absolutely fascinating. And the actor they had play the barber surgeon was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd never heard of this actor before, but when listening to it, I almost wondered if they had gotten Anthony Hopkins.
I wondered that myself.
Yeah, no, I
'Cause the
didn't
performance
wonder that
is-
because I knew that probably wasn't possible. However, he did have Anthony Hopkins vibes for certain.
Which
Like,
then made me
especially
wonder
the-
how come Anthony Hopkins hasn't done Doctor Who.
Well, yeah. Like especially the Westworld Anthony Hopkins that we get, where he's all philosophical and all of that. It felt so much like him that it just added the extra gravitas to the entire story. That we finally meet this guy, and wow, this is who he is. Okay,
Nicholas
can I get some more with him, please?
And everybody that in the behind the scenes that talked about the actor Nicholas Leprovost, they held him in very high esteem. So I assumed he's probably a revered actor over there that we're just not as familiar with over here.
I'm assuming he's more of a stage actor, because looking at his IMDb, he's not done a whole lot.
Okay.
I take that back. He's done a lot, but a lot of like one episode things.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah.
Single projects.
Yeah.
Well, you two almost talked me into it.
Oh. Of course, you didn't want the Time War.
Yeah.
For all of the above mentioned things, I don't disagree with you. I like the name dropping and the world building and getting to that slightly darker version of the Doctor, although I think it's still kind of weird to do that turn in a War Doctor Begins set, which is a maybe a strange comment, but I feel like if we're still kind of setting things up, then at some point we need to drop that moniker and just be the War Doctor. And I understand the reasoning for it, that we're separating John Hurt from this John, but it just, I don't know. It's like, well, if this is the beginning of his career as, this, then it shouldn't be that dark yet. I wouldn't think, even though I'm the one that's been saying, hey, when is it going to get dark? But now that it has gotten dark, I feel like there were 10 other adventures that we kind of missed out on between now and then. It just feels like it flipped on a dime.
I agree with you. Let me talk to that real quick, because I sort of in my head canon want to place this further down the line. And I think part of the justification for doing that too is Robert Valentine, who wrote this, which, by the way, having one single writer for this entire story arc is what I think makes it work, because the focus is there from beginning to end. But he claims that this box set is towards the end of the Time War. He has said that he wrote this with that in mind. And so we talked a little bit about box branding, I think a few weeks back, when we were talking about the newest War Doctor Begins that's coming out, and how the box art doesn't say War Doctor Begins anymore. It just says the title of the story. And then, of course, the problem is they still have the younger picture of the Doctor, and even on this box set, it's the younger John Hurt image that they're using for a younger War Doctor. And so that makes it slightly confusing. But I think in my head canon, I can easily excuse that this is literally set much closer to the end. And I, to that point, think that the Doctor walks away from these events with the moment itself. And I think that's sort of alluded to at the end of this. He talks about
The moment
the
has
moment
been
has been
prepared
prepared for. And I sort of think that somewhere between here and there, this ends up in the Gallifreyan artillery archive or artillery
The
room where
Omega
he ends
Arsenal?
up Arsenal, there you go, where he ends up going and initially getting it. So in my head canon, that's how that works. So, but anyway, Sean,
Yeah.
go on.
And I agree with you there. It does feel like it is darker than especially even John Hurt War Doctor stories we've gotten. But
I don't know.
on the same
Only the
token,
Monstrous is pretty dark.
well, and having listened to to all the John Hurt stuff, it, as much as I want to place this further down the timeline, the cameo with Leela creates a huge contradiction that cannot happen. And honestly, this box set almost needs to take place because obviously, from what we've listened to, Leela is not on Gallifrey anymore.
Well, yeah, as far as we know, she's been hurled out into the vortex by the War Master.
Yeah, so this would need to take place before that happens, because
Not
not knowing what
necessarily.
happens with Leela, I know something else that happens with Leela even further down the road.
Well, that's just it. When we get back into the Gallifrey stuff, we're going to pick back up and find out more about Leela and where she's at this point. So,
Right. So not knowing what happens in the Gallifrey with Leela, but knowing what happens in the War Doctor with Leela, there's kind of it does kind of need to be earlier on.
And see, I think that may be another problem for me is trying to pigeonhole this. Not that it's all that important to know when a story is set or happening, but because of the Leela conversation in which she discussed, they tell the Doctor, well, we sent the Master, and then he gets the message from Leela to verify things. Just the way those two things kind of paired up, it almost felt like they were specifically referencing the adventure that the War Master and Leela went on.
Were they not?
I don't think they were.
Okay, because I got that impression too, that this was that, but we ultimately know where the War Doctor ends up as well. So that's another thing that I think is left very empty, that this certainly cannot be the War Doctor here that has been left behind. But anyway,
so just doing a little bit of spoiler looking on TARDIS Wiki, it looks like it's referencing Gallifrey War Room.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is what it's talking about.
Well, and when the Leela and the Master were together, they were to get that guy that was experiencing multiple times at once because of the temporal weapon, which is nothing to do with the Barber Surgeon. So it just, I couldn't make it work. And I think my brain just kept tripping over it going, well, when is this?
And I think the problem is we're not far enough into the Gallifrey stuff to really be able to help us place it in our heads as well.
And that's certainly a possibility. Yeah. The other problem that I ran into, honestly, is with the Barber Surgeon himself. I like the idea of this boogeyman, that there is a third party that is fighting the war and doing it with such callous regard for the monstrosities, that this is truly somebody who has gone, okay, enough's enough, and showing up both the Time Lords and the Daleks in cruelty. Okay, that's cool. I can get behind that. But then we spend the first 2 episodes in setup getting to the threat, and then the threat is kind of revealed to just be a cautionary tale for the Doctor. It's like, oh, don't be like me, and that's it. There's just there is no climax. It kind of all fizzles out under this. We're going to have an ethics debate and a a theoretical discussion of what might happen to you. And oh, by the way, you don't have to assassinate me because I'm already dying. It's like, well, man, we just kind of pulled all of the teeth out of this thing. Because, you gave us the boogeyman, but then he didn't threaten anybody. He didn't boogie anybody. And you gave the doctor this, hardcore, we want him taken care of. Okay, I'll go assassinate him. And he didn't even come close to it. Not that he would have, but it would have, if you're going to set up that moral conundrum, well, let's follow through with it then. I want to see how the doctor gets out of not assassinating this guy, or how he can justify it if he's as much a monster as we've made him out to be. And I kind of almost expected a little bit more from the revelation that the Time Lords were, oh, we don't really want you to kill him. We just want you to lead us to where all the goodies are kept. And they kind of make a big to-do out of that. And then the doctor is allowed to send a message to the Time Lord saying, don't come any closer, and run away. And the bomb goes off. And I don't know. It just kind of all felt very anticlimactic for me at the end. And I sat back and I brooded over this for a full day afterwards, going, what specifically was it about this that I didn't like? Was it that it didn't meet my expectations? Or, is that on me because I had my expectations set somewhere else? And I'll be honest, I can't pin it down. I'm not quite sure what I was disappointed with, just that I was.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think
I
you're
had
on.
issues with the resolution also. It felt so quick of my, unforgiving minute isn't fully finalized, and I've set it to go even though it's not finalized, and it's not going to truly work like I want it to, and it's going to kill me and destroy everything. So you're okay. Run away.
So
yeah,
it felt so rushed that it kind of took the wind out of everything that had come before.
I think you both. I think that's okay too to feel that way, because I can see where you're coming from. But I think that's what I ultimately liked about it, because that's what I thought was really cool, is that we're setting up this, and I'm glad that you said boogeyman, because that's like the best descriptor of this guy. Is we've set up this ultimate abomination of a man who is doing things on both sides that are detrimental to everybody and everything. And we've set this guy up to be the ultimate baddie, to get to that end and realize how fallible he actually is, and how there's almost more of a build-up in the reputation. I've talked about this with the War Doctor, why I haven't had a problem with the with the slow playing of the War Doctor, and these events that we're actually see play out aren't as monstrous or as dark as we have built them up to be in our head, because we didn't know what was happening. We've just heard that he's been locked off, from the memories of the Doctor. Well, guys, the only reason he's locked off from the memory of the Doctor is because he used the moment. There's very little that says that they shut him out because he became a warrior and did bad things. He did, don't get me wrong, but that's not why they've basically tried to lock him out of their memory and everything. It's because he used the moment, because he ended up ultimately doing what he did. And then we find out that that's undone or never was done because of events that take place later, which I think makes it even better that it works that way. But also, with the confines of this story, it's the same thing. It's this build up of, and I'm not saying that this barber surgeon didn't do some atrocious things. He obviously did, because they wouldn't be so adamant of getting him. But he's not the ultimate boogeyman. And I think that's what I liked about it, is the fact that he is fallible. There is a weakness to him. And by the time the Doctor gets here to this, having gone through all of this build up to try to get to him and this trap, and have to go through this dimensional thing that only the Doctor can go through because he's the one that has to speak the words. And we haven't even talked about the Hunter-Killer Dalek, which I think is just amazing. But anyway, so to get there and to find this and have this guy who's just a pale imitation of what the Doctor could be and ultimately become, I kind of like that it ends up becoming not this pressing, got to push the button, figure out how to take this guy out without actually, because that's all taken care of for him. And so I that's what I liked about this, is that there's this ultimate boogeyman build up to, okay, this guy's bad, but not as bad as we expected. I mean, he's bad, but it's not going to be as hard to take him out as we expected. And I think that's what I liked about it. But I can see where you guys are coming from that expectations of getting there and this feeling like it fizzles out. It just doesn't feel like it fizzled out because that was satisfactory to me. That was like, oh wow, I went through this really intense, immense ride, and then we get to this point. And it's like, okay, well, this actually kind of is going to take care of itself, and it's really just the Doctor discovering ultimately what he could become. And so that's why it worked for me.
I also question a little bit about the Dalek hierarchy. There is.
I was going to mention that too.
There's an abundance of personality going on within the Dalek chain of command, as opposed to give orders, obey orders, or I mean, we've had schisms before between the Emperor and whoever. And I appreciate the fact that the time strategist is kind of playing this long game, that he for all of the menace that this thing has given us in all of these other sets, he's doing it his way, but it still seemed like maybe he was doing it for the good of the Dalek Empire, even if he didn't agree with the way the Emperor was doing things. Now it's very apparent that no, screw him. I'm going to take over and do it myself and blah blah blah. The Hunter Killer Dalek I thought was going to be cool from the initial description and this hybrid, and I was like, oh, we're getting to the where they've got the eye stalk buried in the forehead model. That maybe we're getting a sneak peek of that or something. And instead the thing clomped around like a Cyberman. And that made me begin to wonder, it's like, well, is that what they've abominated it with? Did we get a cross-pollination of cyber parts in order to give it legs or something? And then he also was built up to be this thing and then was very much not a thing. He wasn't effective at his job. He killed more Daleks than he did anything else. And that was just another part of the story that I was like, okay, get on with it. I just felt that I did not care. Now, bringing a special weapons Dalek in to off the time strategist, I'm okay with.
So I think that's the thing that I like about this again, and it's going to be counterintuitive to what you guys are saying or what you're saying specifically, because ultimately I should feel the exact same way, because you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. He ends up proving to be very ineffective. But what I think I like about this, and maybe it's because it's not just him that has legs. There are the others. I suppose they describe as the spider Daleks, because they're Daleks with legs. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen spider Daleks, though. But spider Daleks are first introduced to us now, albeit down the timeline later, in Engines of War. So this is the first time that we've had the spider Daleks. The spider Daleks are in that as well. But I also imagine that the spider Daleks are basically Dalek casings that have extensions of just, some mechanical legs on them. And
based off the cover art, yes.
Yes.
That is
and
exactly what it is.
I envision the Hunter Barber as a much larger version of this. But what I like about it is the characterization of the Hunter Barber is different enough that we don't have this cookie cutter Dalek. It seems like Dalek after Dalek after Dalek design is the same. Even the special weapons Dalek are somewhat just a step up better. Yes, and that's why I think I've always, like you, Sean, been a fan of the special weapons Daleks, but I have a feeling this is more the Hunter Killer Dalek, or Dalek Hunter Killer, is more of a cross between the special weapons Dalek and the the Executioner Daleks that we got in Time Lord Victorious. And so this, to me, that was what the hybrid was, or the mutation of it together was. And so I like the fact that, okay, this is a different Dalek. This is a big, big Dalek, scary Dalek, only taking single orders from the time strategist, which I thought there was only one time strategist. In reading a lot of materials and information. This is not the same time strategist that we even got in Time Lord Victorious. So
it's not.
Don't get confused with that. Yeah, because this time strategist is purple and has these, I mean, it's actually a really cool design, purple, and has these little, like, I don't know, rings around the neck casing and some sort of like energy bulb in it. Anyway, if you look it up online, he's actually really kind of cool looking. Unfortunately, he's dead. But this isn't that same strategist either. So I also like the fact that there is a lot of this, it just because this is very much in line with the Daleks that we've had, where we have these different factions of Daleks that are always trying to usurp the Emperor or somebody else. And so that's why we always have these different, factions of Daleks throughout the entire history of the Daleks, because you just can't, they're always trying to undermine each other. At least the higher ups are always trying to undermine each other and do things. But back to the Hunter Killer Dalek, what I liked about that is you get to the end of Act 2 after building this guy up and he's like dispatched. It's like he gets zapped because he can't go through the portal because it has to be the doctor that does it, that says the words. And so he just basically, that was his use. And I thought, so they built this guy all up and then they dispatch him here at the end of Act 2. That's okay. That seems kind of a waste. To have him show up later, because he didn't actually die here, to show up later in Act 3, I thought was kind of a neat little, look who's back now. He proves to be ineffective at this point as well. And at this point, he's ineffective because he no longer has the backing of the time strategist, because they've gone in and executed the time strategist for trying to stab the Emperor in the back. And so he ends up not having any sort of power at that point because that has been cut off from from Scarrow. So ultimately, I like the fact that he's then becomes ineffective because those mechanicians that the time strategist is trying to usurp or get one up on the Emperor end up failing. So there's this domino effect, and ultimately it ends up failing for him too. So I liked that dynamic because it was something that was unexpected to me. Because again, I kept thinking, okay, we're building up to these. How do you finalize something that you've built up so big? Well, you finalize it by not making it a big deal, by, going against what you expect or going against the norm. So again, with the Hunter Dalek, I like the characterization of it, and I also like the fact that he ends up being ineffective in the end. So again, that's just me. That's what I enjoyed about that.
He was kind of pulling Darth Maul.
Yeah, sure.
He was the big bad. He got dispatched. Then he came back, but he came back without anybody's authority.
Yes.
And I like the politics of Scarrow, seeing them and fighting and hearing what's going on there. It's in line with the characterization of Daleks, and I found it interesting to listen to and hear, that going on. Hunter Killer, I thought, was an interesting character, and I agree with a lot of what you said, Glenn, except for I envisioned him humanoid for whatever reason.
I think it's because of the voice
around.
I think it's because of the voice too. Yeah, it's very
the
much
voice
different.
sounds less Dalek.
Yeah.
So he almost sounded like I don't know, just some big brute of a beast. I don't know.
And maybe he is. I don't think I've seen any imagery with.
I was looking. I couldn't find anything.
He almost could be anything that we imagine. So at this point, until it's definitive somewhere.
Okay, so now, is he supposed to be one of these spider Dalek things?
Well, we don't know. That's what I was saying.
I don't think so, but
because he was clomping around and sounding very much like them, I just imagined him as a much larger version, and probably in a black casing rather than the gold casing. And I sort of imagined him with an outfit more like or a setup more like the Special Weapons Dalek rather than the standard Dalek fare. So that's just how I imagined him. That doesn't necessarily have to be what he looks like. That's just the way I imagined it as I listened to it.
Well, I wish I'd have had your imagination, because this thing is terrifying. I've not seen a spider Dalek before, visually, that I'm aware of.
Well, I think they were just described. I don't think I'd even seen a picture of them until the box art for this. And then I went and saw the trailer for this. If you haven't got a chance, look at the trailer for this, because the trailer really shows them in action, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, Yeah, maybe that would have worked better for me had I seen that ahead of time.
Well, when they said, "Oh, you've got legs,"
Yeah, the doctor says that. So it's the first time he's realized that.
I didn't realize what he was referring to at first. I was like, "What does he mean? They got legs? What? That's got to be ridiculous looking."
Well, and I think
You imagine little humanoid like legs underneath.
Yeah, I was like, "What? How is that even a Dalek at that point? What's going?"
He said it, and what I heard in my head was Forrest Gump. You got magic legs, Lieutenant Dan. So it was pretty much over from the get-go with that. So, but this I will concede that if it was a spider Dalek looking thing, that's much more impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This box set's got me more excited for future War Doctor Begins if they continue on this path.
I think you've got to get writers that are ready to take this Doctor down that sort of path that I think we've come to expect. And I think Valentine does a good job of that, but I think that he doesn't go too far as to, make him too dark before we get, further into this war. That's why I want this one to be further down the line just because of that. But I suppose until we find out more about where Leela's been left and where, we know that the War Doctor survives because beyond, we know that, the War Doctor, the War Master just survives because, beyond this, he hides out at the end of time as Professor Yana. So,
well, and, I've talked about, he's had to have done horrible things to make himself want to forget himself. And self-hate is always, the worst self-criticism you can have. Sure. I mean, he's always going to be harder on himself than other people. But seeing this sort of story where there's been death in his wake that he didn't even try to avoid would make him hate himself and want to forget this incarnation.
Yeah.
So even if they don't really dip back into this depth, this box set helps me mend that, gap helps cover that gap for me of why the later incarnations would feel that way about the War Doctor.
Yeah. Sean, final thoughts?
Yeah, it's just kind of there for me.
Okay.
I didn't love it. I don't hate it, but I didn't love it.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our Doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong Doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Travelling the Vortex.
What do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, blissfully, we have a break from the Time War. Coming up next, we return to Season 6B with a Target storybook called Save Yourself, which is a little short story, along with a couple of Big Finish audio dramas, Beyond War Games, The Final Beginning, and Wrath of the Ice Warriors, featuring the Second Doctor. When we return from that, we will go back into the Time War, but we will be on Gallifrey, in Gallifrey Time War 3, and we will do the 4 parts of that. And then we return to our 60th anniversary tie-in, or build-up to Beat the Meep, with City of the Damned and the Liberation of the Daleks, part 1 through 4.
That's what you have to look forward to. And you can find us, of course, on our website, travelingthevortex.com. And if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on that Patreon link and consider supporting us. We've made it now that if you are a Patreon supporter, you can actually unlock our content directly from our website. So be sure to check that out if you're a Patreon member. And if you could give just even $1 a month, that totally helps us keep the lights on here at Traveling the Vortex. And of course, we want to give a big shout out to Darth Gallifrey, who has now signed up as a Patreon pledge. And Jamie, we sure appreciate that. And, like I say, anybody that wants to sign up, go to our website, click on the link, and it'll get you right started. Again, you don't have to give a lot, just a little bit. Helps every bit. And thank you so much for all of you that are supporting us right now on Patreon. And then, of course, please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast, because that helps bump us up in the ratings and the recommendations on many of those podcast aggregators, including Apple Podcasts and then Google as well. Anything else we need to touch on before we close this show? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
No, I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.